laughing so hard I lost track of time.
Okay.
Yes. I take it you're here for gold.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Ah, very good. Have you found any gold?
A little bit.
Ah, well done,
Yeah.
well done. Now, do you happen to have any legal representation? Well, it just so happens I'm the barrister.
Oh.
My name is Joseph Park.
Hello.
Good afternoon, miss.
Are you married to,
No. I'm an eligible bachelor.
Okay.
Yes. I'm just thinking to myself, I should have a video rolling so I could record our conversation about, I'm back. But I'm not gonna, because it's like, I don't want to be doing that. I want to be part of life, and I don't need to record everything in my life. No one gives a shit. Joseph Park, barrister at law.
God, I can't do this with you making me laugh. Someone thinks that they're doing something correctly, they don't come for help.
But the truth is, I was offered a cabin.
We take pride in that to St. George that we are probably the cleanest.
Wanting to make this film, making this the last film that I make. Not quite sure why I'm recording this exactly. It's the filmmaker in me, I guess. Things have changed a lot for me.
Good morning. Welcome to Barkerville. Oh, my name is Tequila. Tequila Mockingbird. And I'm going to be your guide here today. Now, who here has been to Barkerville before? And who hasn't? Excellent. Well, for those of you who have, I hope that you find some of the old things new again. And for those of you who have not, I hope you discover some totally new things about the crown jewel of BC's heritage. For you know, without Barkerville, the British Columbia that we know could have either been annexed to the States or it could have remained a British colony. But I'm sure you're going to understand a lot more as we move through time. Oh, which brings me to my most important point. From the moment that we walk through those doors, you're going to be moving through time. You're going to arrive in Barkerville in the 1870s. But you're not going to remain in the 1870s. Nope. You're going to be following the booms and busts of this gold town throughout the day. Now, you're going to notice on your schedules, there's various things happening in town at different times. But they're also happening at different dates as well. Now, the people that you meet in town are in the times they depict, and they're going to accept you as being in that time as well. You know, they often think of newcomers who are minors that are new to town. So just be aware and by all means play along. You're going to find out some very interesting things. Now, depending on where you go, of course, the interaction will change. Now, you're going to notice that some of the buildings you can go into, others you can look through the windows, and others still present more of an informational approach. But what you witness here is based on historical evidence, which we are constantly upgrading as new evidence is received or research is done. Now, a few quick rules before we get started. If anyone happens to see an animal wander into Barkerville and it's not wearing miner's clothing, it's a wild animal. Please, don't feed it, as corn animals can bite and attack. Even those cute little Columbia ground squirrels out there can bite. Now, for my most important rule of all, if anyone at any time happens to see a bear wander into Barkerville, anywhere in Barkerville, and it's carrying a picnic basket, you let me know. Now also, Barkerville is a museum, and even though we're outside, there's a lot of old dry wood, and we're still inside of a museum, so the only place that we can smoke is over on the creek. Now, this is going to help us to avoid fires and make sure that everyone is comfortable on their stay. And speaking of comfort, rest assured, we do have washrooms here. There's some in this building, uptown at the Phoenix Brewery, most of the restaurants, or if any of you prefer to remain historically accurate, we do have outhouses. If you're confused, feel free to ask. Trust me, I understand. Now, if any of you have any questions at all about anything on the tour, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you at the end of the tour. That way, we can keep on schedule and I don't forget where I am. Where was I? Right. Does everyone have one of these schedules? We've got a long tan color sheet and this short white sheet as well. Now, this long tan color sheet has all of the events happening in Barkerville at locations such as the water wheel or inside of buildings such as the theater. The shorter white sheet is the performances held on the street by the street interpreters themselves. Now, if you're confused about what's happening where, just ask anybody and they'll be glad to help you. Now, also, I have these Barkerville guides here. Now, these site guides have information on all of the buildings in Barkerville. Now, you can purchase one of these here or uptown at the Barkerville Hotel, if you care to. It's completely optional. Is everyone ready?
Yep.
At least one person is. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Great! Oh, these young people so full of energy. Oh, I love it. Oh, now, I don't mean to alarm any of you, but as we walk through this door, now you might feel a slight bump, okay? Nothing to worry about. It's just the effects of time travel. Now, don't forget your wallets, purses, cell phones, fax machines. Well, looks like we all made it. Now, I don't mean to make any of you nervous, but what happened last month, that was a complete fluke. The doctor said that gentleman's gonna be just fine. Now, oh look, here's a town person now. Good morning, Mr. Morgan.
Good morning, sir. Newcomers, I see.
Yes, they've just arrived.
Wow, it's interesting that you're at this end of town.
Right. You see, you would have actually arrived from Richfield on the Caribou Wagon Road. This way would have led you to Cameronton and Marysville.
Well, no matter. I would be happy to help show you around. There is a lot to know if you're gonna survive up here.
And what brought you up here?
Well, the gold, of course. Nothing like a gold rush to get people moving. Now, the Hudson's Bay Company, they tried to keep it under wraps, but you can't keep a secret like that. Word spread, and it spread fast, down the west coast to California and east towards Upper Canada. And now with so many Americans flooding into town, James Douglas, chief factor for the Hudson's Bay Company, he grew concerned about annexation, so he claimed this land for the crown. Subsequently, Queen Victoria, she appointed him governor of the colony. Well, the miners have been flooding up ever since, following the Fraser and its tributaries right here to Williams Creek. But for more in-depth explanation, I would speak to Miss Playfair and her boys up at the Sheepskin Claim. Well, there's a lot to see, and I'm sure you'd all like to get settled in, so we should really be on our way.
Oh, yes. Well, just over here is the El Dorado Claim. This is where you can learn to gold pan. They also rent umbrellas. Now, just over here to your left, this yellow house is the Trigulus family home. Now, the house was originally located near the Reduction Works, where the Government Hill Campground is located today. Well, Fred and his wife moved the house here in 1905, and the family held it for a very long time. But they've recently donated it to Barkerville, and we have restored it to what it could have looked like in the 1930s using some of the artifacts donated by the family.
No, good trying, P-Pop. This is a gold rush, not a gold Donald.
Well, we better do as he says. Now, just over here is our Methodist church. Now, court is held up in Richfield at the courthouse throughout the day, but there is one final court session held here at 5:30. Now just over here is McMahon's Confectionery. If you find yourself missing your children or your significant other, check here.
Now, seeing as you have just arrived, you're likely in need of a place to stay, especially seeing as you aren't carrying all that much with you. May I suggest Mrs. Parker's boarding house? She offers very reasonable rates, just $12 a week for bed and board. It is a well-equipped boarding house with all of the modern conveniences. Why, it even appears she has recently installed some caribou-sized mosquito netting. Keeps the big ones out.
Yes, the mosquitoes up here can get quite large. Why, in fact, I was down at the campground the other day, and I overheard one gentleman say to the other, "Hey, can you brush this mosquito off my chest?" To which the second responded, "Brush it off yourself." To which the first replied, "I can't. He's got both my arms pinned down."
What are you talking about?
Well, the size of the mosquito.
Let's move along,
Okay.
This is the St. Xavier's Anglican Church.
Yes, it's become a great image of Barkerville.
Yes, I suppose it has made an impression, as it has just recently opened. Reverend Reynard acquired the lot in 1869. Shortly after he arrived in 1868, he used to actually hold his services in the saloon. Needless to say, the Reverend has had difficulty getting minors into the doors of the church. But his church institute nights, they've proven to be quite popular.
They even happen on occasion to the present day.
You have such an interesting way of putting things.
Thank you. Well, the church is owned and operated by the Diocese of the Caribou of the Anglican Church of Canada.
Just over here is our schoolhouse. Now, our school teacher will be happy to teach anyone who is at all interested in learning. Classes will be held throughout the day. However, if you are planning on attending, I would ask that you are prompt and well scrubbed. Tardiness will not be tolerated.
Now, the original schoolhouse was located half a mile from here in Stouts Gulch. That way, both students from Barkerville and Richfield could attend. Now, and look, over here is a large cottonwood tree. Now, it is well known that the Bowron family planted numerous cottonwood trees in the area. But cottonwood trees only live from 40 to 60 years of age, so it's very unlikely this is one they planted themselves. But it could very well have grown from the roots of one they did plant. Oh, now all of you there in the back, don't be afraid to come a little closer. Its bark is worse than its bite. Now, the cottonwood tree is a member of the poplar family and is one of the most popular trees in town. Oh dear, we really ought to be moving along. Wait. I have tree jokes. Oh, please stop. But I'm allowed to tell them. I am a member of the Parks branch. Right, give me more tree jokes then. Well, I think I have an older one. No, I'm stumped. Good. Let's leave. Oh, that's a good one. Just stick with me on the roadway, folks. That way gets to the buildings on both sides. Just over here is our tin shop. And since you're not in need of a gold pen, it'll be a very important stop for you. And they also supply pins for roofing, which is proving very effective in keeping our town from burning to the ground. Again. And next door, the Bowron residence. That's where John and Emily live here. And John is one of the overlanders in Barkerville. Now, the overlanders made their way across Canada West, Ontario, and Quebec on what they thought would be a 4-week journey across the prairies and mountains here to Barkerville. A journey actually took 4 weeks, and of the 250 that originally set out, only 89 of them spent one season here on Williams Creek. Oh, that's not to say the rest died. Oh, heavens no, only 7 died. The rest found other places along the way which called to them, or they felt had opportunities which were worth seizing upon. Now, their journey was so well respected that it was often added to their title. So John Bowron would then be introduced as John Bowron Overlander. And just Overlander here is the Wendell House. Joe and Betty Wendell love the outdoors. That's why they have a guiding business, which ran all the way up until 1935. Then in 1958, Joe was presented a Certificate of Merit by the Premier of the province and the Lieutenant Governor for his contributions to the Barkerville community.
Good day, Mr. Park.
Good day, Mrs. Hodgkinson.
Patronizing the blacksmith again.
Yes, I need a couple more sticking toms for a case I'm working
We
on.
have some very green miners here who might not know what a sticking tom is exactly.
Well, a sticking tom is just a fancy word for candle holder. You see, it's got this pointy end here, and this roundy bit.
Those are the technical terms.
Now what we do is we drive this into our timbers to hold our candles underground. Now you see, we use a whale oil-based candle, which one hopes will last around 6 hours. Well, we then use another candle, which one hopes will last around another 6 hours. You see, your shift underground usually lasts 12 hours, so this helps to mark the time underground. 2 candles, and you're pretty close to the end of your 12-hour shift.
And speaking of shifts, I really must make my way back to do laundry. Good day to you both. It was a pleasure meeting all of you. Best of luck in the goldfields.
Mrs. Hodgkinson, I'm also making my way up the street if you care to join me.
Oh, well, Mr. Park, we'd be happy to join you up the street.
Oh, good.
Just overhead is the provincial government offices. This is where you can record your claim with the government, and rest assured, any gold that winds up in your pockets will eventually wind up in theirs. Now just up ahead is Barnard's Express. If you need anything shipped up or shipped out, this is the place to do it. Well, Francis actually started by delivering letters to the goldfields from Yale on foot. It wasn't so much of an express line then, but now it is one of the longest stagecoach runs in North America. From Yale to Barkerville, it was record-breaking 4 days for passengers. Quick stops and fresh horses, now that's the key to that, but don't expect to get much sleep on the journey. It's bumpy.
Got it.
Well, and they're also responsible for carrying a fair amount of gold out of the area. Well, in 1868, they transported, what was it?
Oh, it's right here.
$1,177,231.74 worth all the stuff.
Oh, actually, that's 73 cents. See right here? 73.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I should have a parcel in there if you'll excuse me for a moment. Now to put that in perspective, that would be 58,862 ounces of gold. Now that treasure shipment would be worth approximately 100 million of our dollars in just 1 year. Now next door is the Goldfields Bakery. This building was constructed in 1933 and originally housed 2 purposes. On one side was the Red Front cigar store and the other, Buckley's drugstore. But now it houses one of the many fine businesses on our creek today, which is why it has 2 front doors. Now the original Goldfields Bakery stood somewhere near where our administration center stands today. Apparently, Louis Haid came up here in the 30s with a 50-pound bag of flour, baked some bread, and went door to door selling fresh baked bread till all of his flour was gone. He was then able to procure more flour and equipment with those proceeds. Thank you very much. Perhaps we sent it by post. Good day.
Good day. The building that Mr. Park is heading towards originally housed the Bank of British North America.
But by 1879 was used both as a post and telegraph office. It is now one of the 10 oldest operating post offices in our province. But it was nearly shut down a few years ago. It was only due to the protest and support of the local community that this great post office is still operating in our time.
Anything you send from here gets the Barkerville postmark. Your letter will become part of postal history and help keep this operating tribute to our heritage alive.
Oh, there's nothing for it. Hasn't come in yet.
Waiting for something important, are you?
Yes, a sweater from Mummy. You'll often notice that after being up here for a while, that the post will become one of your most treasured things. You'll often see people making a beeline in the morning to the post office in hopes of news from Mum. Oh. Well, that's a shame. Perhaps it will come tomorrow.
Now just over here is the Wake Up Jake restaurant.
Named for an Irish miner, Jake Franklin, who would order and fall asleep before he could be served. Now Mrs. Kelly would have to wake him up in order to serve him, and that's how it got the name. Wake Up Jake.
Really?
Yes.
Sounds fishy to me.
It's not.
He wasn't also working at the Wake Up Jake claim, was he?
What?
That was in this location before they built the restaurant. Regardless of how true Mr. Park's story is, the Wake Up Jake is another one of the operating businesses here in town.
It's not on my documents.
Just next to it, you will see a small signpost.
Now this is the previous site of the Adler and Berry Saloon, on which September 16th started the Great Fire of 1868.
Oh, that was something to see. In fact, I heard it from Frederick Darley, who heard it from an eyewitness that it was started by a miner trying to steal a kiss from one of the dancing girls. And in the ensuing struggle, they knocked a stovepipe loose and sparks flew. Figuratively and literally. Well, this ignited the canvas ceiling, and in less than 2 minutes, the whole building was ablaze. Luckily, people managed to get 50 kegs of blasting powder down a dry mine shaft. Well, it's very unlucky. I'll be standing here talking to you today. But even still, 5-gallon oil tins were exploding all over town, sending blankets and bedding hundreds of feet into the air. People were grabbing what they could and taking it as far away from the flames as possible. Now some went back for more. Other unscrupulous people stole what they had left in safety. But in a matter of hours, most of our town had burnt right to the ground. But we didn't sit back on our ashes. Reconstruction began immediately, but lumber that had cost $80 per 1,000 board feet now cost $125. But even still, in less than 1 week, we already had 20 buildings rebuilt.
Now next door is Mr. Moses' hair salon. Now Mr. Moses was born on the Isle of Grain or the Grand Cayman Islands as a British citizen, and later on moved to California. Now, in the early 1850s, there was great concern that slavery was coming to California, and there were many articles written in some of the black newspapers, and plans were made to leave. Now, James Douglas at the time was struggling to find laborers to help build the barracks for the men trying to establish the border between the United States and this British colony. He also needed more citizens to form a strong and loyal base for the crown. So he extended an invitation to this group of people with the promise of freedom and land in exchange for loyalty. Well, 65 of them rented a boat called the Commodore, and they were ready to set sail. However, the captain needed more seats sold, so he put out advertisements promoting these gold fields, and it was those promotions that really got this gold rush booming. Now, Mr. Moses was one of 3 men who had an interview with James Douglas, and he told them they could buy land at 20 shillings an acre, but had to stay for 7 years and swear an oath to the crown. Mr. Moses was instrumental in helping 300 to 400 black families emigrate from the United States to this British colony. But around here, he's most well known for his hair invigorator.
Why, it works a miracle. In fact, I use it every day, and I used to be as bold as a cue ball. Now look at me. Huh? Look at me. Just look at me!
Oh dear. Mr. Park! Mr. Park!
Yes! Alright, but if it's something other than your hair that ails you, you might want to see Dr. Watt. He is one of the numerous physicians here on the creek, and we certainly need them. Mining disasters, caving, and influenza. Now, in 1863, there was a horrible typhoid fever outbreak. Now, with so many people on the creek and not the best of sanitation conditions, sewage made its way into our creek where we get our drinking water from. So we wound up having to build wooden water pipes. Now this run over our streets into the spring on the hillside, which run back over our streets to fill up barrels in the back streets for people to fill up their water buckets from. Now that typhoid fever outbreak led to a meeting on July 22nd where it was resolved that a hospital was in order.
Now another doctor on the creek was Dr. Carroll, and he was the representative of the Caribou on the Legislative Council in 1868. And in 1871, he was appointed one of the first provincial senators. And he may have also proposed the idea of celebrating Dominion Day, which we all celebrate as Canada Day. Now, after going to the doctor's office, he might send you over to J.P. Taylor's drugstore to get your prescriptions filled. However, the ingredients on the bottle may seem more like something you would find at a modern-day herbalist with a few very choice ingredients. Take, for example, the Perry Davis's elixir, which has numerous herbs, a little bit of alcohol, and a healthy dose of opium.
Why, it's a wonderful remedy. In fact, I use it every day as well. And I'll put a couple spoonfuls in my coffee every morning, and I just feel wonderful. I just can't get enough of it. I can never get enough.
Let's move along, shall we? Keep your children close.
This clearance where we often meet for discourses throughout the day. The next one will be held at 3:15, and Mr. Joseph Clark will be having a talk on some of the language barriers that existed here on the creek.
I'm the local barrister in this city, and it's free legal advice today, but only today at 3:15.
Keep in mind you get what you pay for.
I am the best.
Just up ahead is the Masonic Lodge. This was given the designation of number 4 BC Register, and it's still a fully operating lodge. They hold their meetings on the second Saturday of every month.
Now, Barkerville, being somewhat of a metropolitan community, offers things that you might not find elsewhere, such as painless tooth extraction. Now, Dr. William Allen Jones is one of our dentists here on the creek. Now, when he was a boy, he was a slave, but his father bought his freedom in North Carolina. Now, 4 of the sons went to college, and this son made his way here during the emigration, of which Mr. Moses was such a great part of. Now, if you come to see Dr. Jones, he can fill your teeth with gold, silver, or tin. The choice is up to you, but I don't recommend the tin. Now, Dr. Jones can also set teeth in pivots. Now, a pivot is a small carved wooden tooth with a bit of a point on the end of it. Now, what Dr. Jones does is he sets this point on what remains of the old tooth, the stump, so to say, and he hammers it directly in. No, absolutely painless. Well, Barkerville is also known as the Valley of the Flags, and here you can see why. People have come from all over the world to participate in this gold rush, and they're very proud of their various nationalities. The French flag flies over the St. George Hotel because the proprietress, Madame Bendixen, is from France. Oh, a very interesting note here is that Madame Bendixen may have been what was referred to as an ingot. You see, the French were in economic disarray, so they devised a lottery whereby the winners would get to go to California. Now, though people bought tickets, it was actually a plot by the government to get rid of the people that the establishment thought were, trouble. So these petty thieves and criminals won the lottery and got to go to California. And, of course, the government made a profit. Now, we can't say for sure whether Madame Bendixen was one of those people sent over, but her arrival in California does seem to coincide with the timeline. Fascinating! Oh, speaking of California, the American flag flies over the House Hotel, the Swiss flag flies over L.A. Blanc's photographic gallery in the studio, and the new German Republic flag flies over Louis Vile's shoemaker's shop. Now, Mr. Vile is a very proud Russian, as Russia has recently joined with Germany. Mr. Wild is also our shoemaker here in the city. And boots are very important to miners up here, especially the gummed rubber ones. And they're very expensive. So some miners have taken to wearing their boots at night to prevent them from being stolen. Unfortunately, if you wear your boots 24 hours a day, well, you might wind up with a condition that we call gum boot gout. Now, what will happen is your foot will begin to rot inside of your boot. It will swell so much that you won't be able to remove the boot. You might have to go to the doctor's office to have it surgically removed. Or if the situation calls for it, the foot as well.
Wow, that's disgusting!
it's gross.
Well, the LA Blanc Photographic Gallery, the St. George Hotel, and the House Hotel all operate in our time.
Yes, and thank you for your time. Newcomers, I see.
They just arrived. I'm showing them around town.
Well, you might want to stop by the assay office, especially if you've got large quantities of gold. You see, it is the assay office where they can test the purity of both placer gold and ore.
And tell us, what is the difference between placer gold and ore?
Well, placer gold is your nugget or fine gold. It is unearthed by glaciation and redeposited by erosion into the creeks and rivers, whereas ore is found in hard rock and is mined from the source itself. And these are the veins of gold in which people speak. It is also the assay office where you can have your gold melted down to bricks for transportation sales.
I'm sorry, but I must be off. It seems that J.P. Taylor has finally opened that drugstore. Good day.
Good luck on that! So I see you're fresh to this gold rush. Well, I'll tell you something. If you really want to make money in this gold rush, you might want to be the person supplying the goods. Why, I've heard tell of miners coming up here with nothing in their pockets but candles in the early rush, knowing they're in such short supply and are selling at such a profit, they were then able to purchase their goods and supplies. The merchants here were and are essential to this gold rush. People are often under the illusion that one can simply just head out and hunt for all you need. But if you're planning on mining, you're not going to have all that much time for that sort of thing. You see, goods have to be shipped up from all over the world, and since we are at the end of the road, quite literally, goods are very expensive, but not nearly as bad as before we had the Caribou wagon road put in. Before then, items had to be trailed up on foot, adding to their cost and the time taken to receiving the said items.
It's like the oil fields of our time. Lots of money to be made, but the expenses are quite high.
Pardon?
Whale oil fields.
Right. Well, it could take up to a month to get the items up here. By 1861, the government finally realised in order to fully develop the mining area, a road had to be built. Well, the Caribou Wagon Road was built under the direction of the Royal Engineers. And by 1863, a fair portion of the road had been completed, but the final stretch between Richfield and Barkerville was not completed until 1865. Now, the BX Express has a fast freight team which can bring your parcels of 50 pounds or more up in 14 days at a rate of 25 cents per pound. All of this, of course, gets added to the cost. And seeing as there isn't too much competition up here, the merchants can charge what they like. It's what the market will bear. But saying that, this is a gold rush and money is no object. So you will be purchasing goods, which brings us to the mercantile district of Barkerville. You can resupply at the Kelly General Store, across the way at C. Strauss, Old Mason and David, which is where the Hudson's Bay Company had their first original Barkerville location. And C. Strauss is where the Oppenheimer Group had one of their first stores. All of the businesses on this side of the street are in full operation, including A. McPherson's watchmaker and jeweler. Now, next to the Kelly General Store, you will find the Barkerville Hotel, which is a great place to spend the night or play a game of snooker. It presently houses the Friends of Barkerville, who are essential to the well-being of this historic site. Feel free to pay them a visit. They've got memberships available and can tell you a lot more about the area. Now, you may have noticed that I'm somewhat elevated in my position, and no, I'm not speaking on my social status, whatever the case may be. No, I'm speaking of how the buildings are elevated. You see, the road which you're standing on is the original creek bed of Williams Creek. Now, they diverted the water upstream from here so they could mine this land. And in 1863, the Royal Engineers surveyed the land, businesses were able to purchase it, and thus our Main Street came into being. However, there is still a fair bit of mining activity happening upstream from here, which includes hydraulic mining. Now this washes tons of gravel into our creek. Now that, with the spring runoff, the lack of trees in our hillside, as most of which are down in the mines, and the tailings, every year our town gets flooded with a torrent of mud, muck and gravel. Now we tried to stop this by putting in a bulkhead, but the muck always seems to overrun it. Now in order to prevent our buildings from being filled with a torrent of mud, muck and gravel each year, we've got to jack our buildings up a little bit higher each year to avoid the next onslaught. Well, there was also a call in 1866 to resurvey the whole lot, as well, most of the survey posts are either buried or gone.
Now to give you an idea how much of these tailings swept through town, over where the theater is located, they dug down to find the original foundation. And between... Now, between 18 and 20 feet, they found a layer of ash, presumably from the Great Fire, and then the original foundation.
Now speaking of fires, as a community blessed with hindsight, we decided to construct the Williams Creek Fire Brigade Hole. After the fire. Now, we have taken this lesson to heart, and now not only do we have a fire brigade hall, but if you look upon the roof, you will see a catwalk. Now, this usually houses a bucket, which fills with water on the rare occasion it rains here in Barkerville, and keeps a blanket inside quite wet. Now, if a fire were to occur on the roof, one simply climb out the window, climb off the roof, take out the blanket, and beat out the flames. Or if the situation calls for it, tip the entire bucket onto the fire.
Very efficient. Now this location also housed the Caribou Amateur Dramatic Association, which put on wonderful plays. Now in those spirited, heady days of theater, it presently houses the Theatre Royal. Talented actors, singers, dancers, and musicians.
Now just over here is our Caribou Sentinel, founded by George Wallace in 1865. Now, among other claims to fame, it is one of the most expensive newspapers to be found. While a newspaper in Fort Victoria would cost around 12.5 cents, whereas our Sentinel costs 50 cents. Now, George held the newspaper for a year before selling it to Alexander Allen and Warren Lambert. Now, when Alexander sold his portion, he apparently expressed joy in a letter to his mom stating, "Now that I've sold the newspaper, I can finally quit drinking." The newspaper is presently owned by Mr. Robert Holloway.
It is also a wealth of information and mining intelligence.
People often contribute to the newspaper with poetry or letters to whom, and if I can't buy one, I usually have one handed to me.
Now just over here is the final stop on our walk through town. Now this, as near as we can tell, is the location where Billy Barker hit his pay. Now Billy Barker came down to Richfield in 1861 and staked the Barker and Company claim. The next summer, he staked down here with 4 other men.
But you can't actually do that. You see, you can only have staking rights to one claim. So he was forced to sell off his shares in the Richfield claim while they were still paying out. Now down here, he sunk 2 shafts with no success until August 17th, 1862. They finally hit the lead. 40 feet of paying gravel, and they uncovered 124 ounces of gold in the next 10 hours.
That's nearly 200,000 of our dollars today in just 10 hours.
Well, they went on a spree.
Drinking and carousing.
For a number of days before heading back to the claim.
But who can blame them? I mean, goodness knows, if it had been me, I would have gone straight to...
You would have done what? Exactly?
I would have done the proper thing and continued working. Hard work, good for the soul. Drinking is...
Expensive.
Talking about Billy, are you? Well, he was a Cambridgeshire riverman who ran barges in England. Unfortunately, due to the creation of a new railroad, his career had taken a downward turn. So somewhere between 1842 and 1846, he actually left his wife and daughter behind in England to seek his fortune in the California goldfields. Well, his wife and daughter, they wound up in the workhouse, and his wife perished there in May 1850. They never heard from him in all that time.
Now, Billy did remarry in Fort Victoria to Elizabeth Collier in 1863. Then in 1864, he sold his shares in this mine while they were still paying out. However, his newfound wealth and happiness was soon to end, as Elizabeth perished there in 1865. Now, Barker had many investments in his hands and many claims, but he never reached the same wealth that he did right here on the Barker claim. And by 1875, he was quite broke. By 1894, he went to the old men's home in Fort Victoria. But the cancer in his jaw had progressed too far, and he died there July 11th, 1894. He was 77 years old. Well, this brings us to the end of our walk through town, but keep an eye on your schedules as there are many more tours and events taking place throughout the day. Enjoy the shops and restaurants and feel free to explore. Now, if any of you have any questions, we'll be happy to stick around and answer them for you, or even pose for any pictures. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining us in Barkerville.
Well done.